Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. Hey, welcome everybody. This is an old school version of the Red Pill Nation. I didn't stream this one on Rumble, and I didn't record this one on Skype. I'm actually sitting in a vehicle at work right now, recording this because for whatever reason this week, I just could not get up because of circumstances or whatever. I just could not get up to do this while I was off work, and for some strange reason, I didn't want to live stream this one, which was kind of strange because I had some fairly big plans at some point to be doing a couple of live streams a week. But I digress about this. Welcome to Red Pill Nation 441. This is a solo episode of Red Pill Nation 441. The reason why it's a solo, it's been a hot minute since I've done. I have done Naroki 5 live streams, of course, that have been solo episodes, but I don't usually do Red Pill Nation episodes that are, solo episodes. So, what was the tone this week? Well, when I look at the topics this week, again, a lot of political stuff, but there's not anything that really, literally jumps out at you. I'm saying that, as we're saying, it was a busy week because I got 7 topics, but at the same time, none of them are really what you call earth-shattering or game-breaking of any type. But for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna break this down into seven topics. And unlike some of the live streams I have where I still haven't figured out how to include live video takes on it yet. The issue with this is that I will be able, for instance, the Arden rant is definitely going to be going on here. Let's just get into this here. So for those of you who don't know, in order of size of video platforms, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, and last, YouTube. Site news. Yeah, okay, I have downloaded some Paul Proteus content onto my YouTube channel. I will be also downloading another batch of Paul Proteus content onto my YouTube channel. Keep in mind, the Paul Proteus content gets released every second or third day. After I finished uploading all of Paul Proteus's content, then I will go on to another MGTOW content creator and repeat the same process over and over and over again. YouTube, for the most part, in fact, most of my channels I'm going to be doing an archive function on all of those channels. Specifically of the content creators I like, which will obviously be a Paul Proteus, and also content creators that have gone kind of quiet over the years. Marcus MGTOW was doing a little bit of content at the end of 2024, and then he just stopped. There's a few other people, John the Other, for instance. He's got a lot of content that's going to be, fortunately, His content is still available on YouTube, but I mean, he's got a lot of content that's going to be going up on other channels because he hasn't actually done any stuff now for almost 2 years. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of content going up that's gonna get released at a later, that's gonna be time released. Also, I'm gonna have to really seriously look at why it is I don't want to restart my Subscribe Star and why I don't actually subscribe to Spotify and iTunes and whatever. I keep talking about putting content up at those channels, but I never seem to get around to doing it. Yeah, there's some stuff that I have to look at personally. It's been a bit unstable this spring. Hopefully things will eventually work themselves out. They always do. But that's where I'm at. So what are the topics this week? And yeah, I am going to be breaking them down topic by topic, and it is going to be just me. So this might actually be a shorter episode than what you're used to. That might actually work in my favor. But the topics for this week, in order. Number 1, James Comey, Donald Trump, 8647. Well, yeah, I think that one is fairly self-explanatory. Topic number 2, murder of Infowars reporter Mr. White solved. Turns out that one wasn't that big of a conspiracy after all. But, you know, a step back from that one reveals a bigger problem, specifically with the city of Austin, for instance, that is in a way even worse than if it had actually been done on purpose. Topic number 3, Jan Arden gets called up for Anti Alberta separatist rant. Yeah, that's the video that you're going to see at the start of topic number 3. Jan Arden is another one of those former Alberta artists that somehow forgot where she was from. I will kind of get into that a little bit because as much as I disagree with Jan Arden about what she said, part of me understands why she said it. And again, right, I'm going to just try to be as straight up and honest with you guys as I can. You know, I think she's a fucking idiot and a moron, but I mean, I have to look at this from, because I have a strange degree of a lot of similarities in terms of my background to Jan Arden, which kind of makes me sort of understand where she's coming from, but not to that degree. I still got to emphasize, I still strongly disagree with her. Topic number 4, Trump going out on offensive lets everyone know about a video covering a Hillary Clinton body count. Oh, that one was really interesting. Letitia James also facing criminal investigation. Yeah, that's that one's an FAFO, fuck around and find out. Topic number 5, P Diddy Trials turning into a circus. Yeah, there was one really interesting theory that came out about this. Rather new and interesting twist. You know, it's a very strong possibility that he may not actually go to jail based upon what has happened thus far. Topic number 6, another MCU release. Ironheart looks like it's going to be another disaster. Yeah, it again, right? This is ground we've covered before. It gets kind of boring after a while, but yeah, once again, get woke, go broke. And topic number 7, Joe Biden has stage 4 cancer. So yeah, hope you enjoy the solo episode. A little bit more of an ordered function, probably a lot less me with other people sitting in chairs going off on tangents. As per always, when I do a solo episode, let me know if you like what you're hearing. All right, let's get on with the topics. So yeah, this particular picture posted up by James Comey, it got an immediate reaction. It definitely got an immediate reaction, obviously, from the Secret Service, who went over and questioned him. Now, there are two parts on this. One, James Comey has been antagonistic towards Trump from the very beginning and has been openly critical and actually downright outright hostile towards Trump. And by the way, I'm not saying this as being as a guy who's on Team Trump, but right there is, and then we get into the second part, and I'm going to get into the second part. I'm going to talk about something that I saw today on Instagram about somebody posted up a video talking about the 2014 Oscars and Ellen DeGeneres offering to buy pizza, and the rather suspicious people. By the way, Epstein was actually in that crowd, as was Weinstein, and Kevin Spacey and it was like really weird how most of the people who put money into that event were all individuals that were later disgraced, at least the video that I saw. And of course, there was also the changeover at the end of it, where instead of being dressed in black, she was dressed all in white, and she brought the pizza out, and it all looked rather harmless and all in good fun. However, I'm going to point something out here. This was before the WikiLeaks event had occurred. This is 24. I think it was 2013 or 2014. And this is before all the WikiLeaks stuff had come out about pizza, and like the speculation was that this was about actually auctioning off a kid. And you know what? There's no direct evidence to suggest that that this was not actually the case. The whole thing was that. And this happens quite a bit with the financial, cultural, and political elites of this country. Because we also saw this with Balenciaga. We've seen this with the Trudeau Foundation. And I used to not buy into this symbology. And yeah, I do personally think that some people see symbology where there isn't symbology. Like not every person who does an okay sign over their eye is a fucking Satanist. Not every person who takes a photo with one eye covered up is a member of a cult. Like I'm not going to go that far. But what I have noticed over the years is that they like to hide this stuff in plain sight. And I've seen enough examples of it being hidden in plain sight where it was later on proven to be true. And that was the thing about Balenciaga, right? Like they didn't even bother to hide it. Like they were so confident and so sure of themselves that it wasn't going to be detected that they just literally threw this stuff out and they didn't care. The fact that, and it's like there was just so much of it in so many places that it was sort of like, yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore. So the James Comey claiming that his wife just posted this up, that made these shells, and that he would take a photo of it and post it up, and that nobody was going, and just assuming that the majority of the people out there were going to be too stupid to figure out what was going on. indicates a level of detachment from reality and almost a certain level of arrogance in just assuming that most people were going to be too stupid, except, of course, that people are not as stupid as you think they are. And it's, like I encounter this all the time. People with university degrees or whatever that make these claims, and their only source of evidence is the fact that they have a university degree, and they make statements as ignorant, as ill-informed, as ill-timed out as some of the worst Bible-thumping rednecks that I used to encounter, say, pre-2012. So it was so damaging that Comey actually had to go on television and say, my wife was the one who took that photo. Well, it's like, okay, all right, so your wife took that photo. Okay? Like, why would you post it then? Why would you publicly post it? Why would you put your name behind it? All right? Like, that is a question that needs to be. And of course, right, I saw a recent, again, today, I saw a photo, I saw a video of a Fox reporter confronting James Comey when he was doing a book signing. And he wouldn't, James Comey refused to answer. And of course, he'd already been grilled by the FBI and Secret Service at this point. So, I mean, yeah, Comey knows that he screwed up. Comey did this to himself, though. That's the thing, right? Comey was so full of himself, so arrogant, so the circles that he runs in had led him to believe that something like this wasn't going to carry consequences. I might be able to go and post up something like that and not have consequences for it because I'm generally anonymous and not well known. Comey does not have that luxury. Comey is also an individual who is I don't want to say he's part of the deep state, but he's definitely part of the problem right now and not part of the solution. So, humor me. Assume that his wife was the one that actually did this. Okay? First of all, his wife would have had to have actually gathered the shells up to post it up, which means that Comey would have known that she was doing this. And he would have seen what she was posting, what she was doing. And he is so not attached to reality that he would see his wife doing that and go, that probably isn't the smartest thing to be doing, right? Like, maybe you should stop that. But no, he lets his wife, or he doesn't try to stop his wife from doing that. Then he takes a photo of it, or she takes a photo of it. But the thing about Instagram, though, is that when you take a photo, it has to come from the phone of when you post up photos, they have to come from the phone of the person who was actually specifically photographing it. So, Comey, this photo would have to have been on Comey's phone. Then, you just have, and then just assuming that people weren't going to put two and two together, that there aren't people who are now familiar with decoding the hidden language that's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, you can only look at what's going on. Like, you can only look at the background of stuff, or you can only see the coded language of people. Like, at first when I saw this stuff, right, it would be like, yeah, you know what? Like, go get a life. Like, seriously, like, go get a life, dude. Like, go touch grass, get the fuck outside. And again, I'm going to say this. Not every celebrity that has a photo with one eye covered is going to be part of that, right? But literally, it's like, at the same time, there have been enough situations where this has happened where you kind of have to start going, right? Just like how the Nickelodeon logo bore a striking resemblance to Epstein Island. And had it not been for everything that had gone on before, it would have been like, yeah, that's a coincidence. But it's sort of like, how many times does a coincidence have to occur before you start thinking there's maybe a little bit more to it than just a coincidence? So, yeah. And the Fox reporter confronting Comey on this and the way Comey was reacting, Comey knew he'd screwed up, and Comey wasn't going to comment on it. And he had the people at the bookstore kind of back off, force this reporter to back off. And it's like, from what I saw, he did not look like a guy who, if this had been, for instance, and you're getting into body language here, if this had been just, a fun photo taken on the beach, and he would have been able to just say it. Like an innocent person would have been able to just say, oh, well, we were just fooling around. But no, he didn't do that. He was really uncomfortable talking about it. So, bottom from, while there's not an absolute smoking gun, because these individuals like to just disguise their behavior just enough to give themselves some plausible deniability, but they also always seem to parade it right in front of your face where you can see it so that they can laugh at you, which, by the way, is also something that happened at the Paris Olympics. And I'm going to kind of get off on a bit of a tangent here. That guy with his dong hanging out at the opening ceremonies of the Paris Olympics, right? Like, I've seen the Olympic coverage of that event, and the camera was put in a position where you weren't going, if you were going to see it, you had to go specifically looking for it. The thing is that on an event like this, every shot and every angle is plotted out. So there's literally no way that based upon how the camera operator was operating his camera, or her, it could have also been a guy. It could have also been a woman operating the camera. Based upon the tilt and the pan and the way the camera only just kind of slid it in there for just like a very brief second, there's no way that could have been a mistake. So if you put all of the logistical actions together of James Comey, and you look at the whole procedure as to how this photo would have ended up on one of his social media accounts, and to claim that his wife took the photo. If your wife took the photo and you knew what this photo meant, why did you take a photo of it? Right? Why would you, even worse, why would you post up something like that publicly? While, of course, he does not legally have to answer these questions because he probably lawyered up over this. Yeah, it's not a good look for Comey to be doing this. And let's be straight up honest here. Given Comey's past with Donald Trump, again, given his past with Trump, given his associations, given the fact that the elites live in a bubble, and that the elites also like to put their stuff in plain sight and just assume that the uneducated rubes are not going to be able to put two and two together, and that this has been a ongoing pattern with them that is specifically now that the internet is out there, has been around for at least a decade, where people have been able to decode this stuff, right? This is not, I mean, yeah, he probably, again, right? They also do this, and let's get into the part of it, plausible deniability, right? There's just enough plausible deniability with this photo that it is not actually convictable, right? Like, I would be kind of curious to go back through history and take a look at some of the other stuff around the elites, and take a look at some of the events like the Oscars and the Grammys and whatnot, and take a look at some of the photos and some of the events that occurred back there, and look at some of the stuff that was going on in the background, and go, right? Like, here's another right? Like the the pattern of the temple on Epstein's Island and the background of Ellen's show have that same blue and white tile motif. Again, maybe that's a coincidence, And if somebody had showed me that 6 years ago, I would have gone, well, that's just a coincidence. But here's the thing. There have been so many of these coincidences in the past couple of years that have been revealed that, you take a look at that and you have to like cock your eye and go, maybe that's not a coincidence. What happened here? What's going on? Who knows, right? But I mean, Comey personally believed that he was being clever enough and smart enough, and he was sticking it to both Donald Trump and all his stupid, rube, ignorant, redneck followers by posting this up. And all of the people that run in Comey Circle were all going to see this and all give him a pat on the back and shake his hand and say, good boy. And he just assumed that most people were going to be too fucking stupid to put two and two together. And he found out he was wrong. This isn't the first time it's going to happen. It's not going to be the last time it's going to happen either. So, yeah. Do I think Comey meant what he meant when he did this? Well, without an actual smoking gun, without a conviction, I cannot say with absolute certainty that's what he meant. It is beyond my comprehension, though, to come up with another reason why he would post up that specific photo right when a book of his is coming out too, by the way, and react the way he reacted when he was confronted about it. Just some food for thought there. And yeah, that's it for this one. We're going to move on to the next one now.
The Infowars family of viewers and listeners into the world with some really horrible news. There are a lot of really cool people that have worked at Infowars over the years, and one of the most amazing people was Jamie White. You know him as a great reporter and researcher. He was up here last night working late during the Sunday show and after it. And we even have his last post on X where he responded to Elon Musk. Jamie was murdered last night outside of his home, just a few miles away from our studios. And we are the folks here breaking that news first because his family has been notified, and his good personal friends here that were very close to Jamie have talked to his folks and family. We sent some people over this morning when he didn't answer the phone, because he's always here early, loves to work, loves to fight tyranny, loves to promote freedom. And when they got to the apartment complex, there was yellow tape everywhere and blood all over the parking lot. And we went and talked to the manager. They didn't know anything. Just like everybody else we see in the left, they just very laissez-faire. But our crew member saw a police officer and went and talked to them. And they made a phone call, and she had the details when she talked to him and knew Jamie. The police officer said yes. He died at the hospital very soon after they got him there. The police responded within 2 minutes, and they had him at the hospital where he was pronounced dead within 18 minutes. Just want to say the police did a great job in the response time, despite, I'm going to talk about in a moment who I hold responsible for this, and who is responsible for this, and who are accomplices to Jamie and so many others' murder, and so many others that have been raped and mugged. Heard me on air talk about how the crime is very, very bad here in Austin. Any leftist city is, and just exploded the last 4 years. But let me just tell you what happened to Jamie. What we know so far, his last post on X was 16 hours ago. There's Jamie's X account. I've sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Original gangster Thomas Jefferson. And I mean, I'll just say it. Jamie was our best writer and reporter. They're all great, but they all said he was the best. I mean, there's others that are almost as good, but not as good as Jamie. And he wrote 6-7 articles yesterday, posted all this news, did all this great research, gave us information for the show, assisted us in what we were doing. And I came in this morning, the crew looked really upset, and they said Jamie didn't come in. And so we sent one of the crew down there. And doesn't look good. And then they didn't even want to tell me yet that the cops had said, no, it was Jamie White. We were the first to learn. We waited until the afternoon until the family's been told. You saw a little clip from the newscast about this in the early morning hours, and it's just Austin Police Department officers responded to a high-priority emergency call at approximately 11:57 p.m. Sunday night. The call was shoot, stab, hot shot, which refers to a high-priority potential life-threatening call involving possibility of an active shooter or stabbings. Officers arrived about 2 minutes later and found a male victim, obvious signs of trauma, according to APD Public Information Officer Leah Ratliff. Officers attempted life-saving measures before the victim was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead at approximately 12:19 a.m. Monday morning. Homicide detectives are actively investigating the incident, which marks Austin's 8th homicide of the year. Authorities have not released information about potential suspects or specific nature of the victim's injuries. This is pretty early on in the investigation, and the homicide unit will be releasing more information as they're able, Ratliff said during a media briefing. Well, we've talked to the police off record. We know more. I'm going to reveal that right now. Multiple police officers we've talked to, detectives, said off record that we said, we're really sick of this, we're tired of this, and they said we are too. We have had in the last few years our funding for crime scene people and responders cut back massively. They made the biggest cuts in areas that deal with violent crime, as we know from the news, but this was them telling us, and that they will bust really hardened people with huge rap sheets committing serious crimes, robberies, armed robberies, and that the Austin DA, who, despite all the pressure and everything, is very proud of himself. Soros put him in on record, financed his run, does nothing. In fact, they just intensify it to the point the governors had to put the state police in to Austin just to try to deal with it. And then the state police really don't know anything but writing tickets, so they just write tickets. And I've been really talking about that being a very, very sad thing. It is very suspicious. I mean, there have been 8 murders in the first 2 months of the year in Austin. And so it's very interesting and very, let's just say, concerning that out of a city of several million people, one of the 8 to be killed is our, I think the crew admits, hands down best writer, who was heavily exposing Soros and USAID and the rest of them. And again, the police won't tell us. They said the call was a hot shot stabbing or shooting, which means critical, serious situation. And again, they got there within 2 minutes of the 911 call, got to the hospital within 15, and then he died as they rolled him in, according to the police, what the captain told me.
Alex,
What the police told me.
And I've been to your studio in the heart of Austin, Texas, a very liberal stronghold in the heart of a very red state. I'm wondering, do you become a target, Alex? I mean, do you not want to leave Austin, Texas? And again, I'm not suggesting this is a crazy liberal, but we'll certainly find out over time. But it strikes me as, why do you want to stay in that hellhole of a liberal bastion?
Well, that's the obvious question, and that's why we have armed security here, and then we are also armed. I mean, I like a good .357 small, lightweight revolver because I'm good with all of the other guns, but it's not going to fail you. It's very safe, and then I can defend myself. If somebody pulls a gun or comes at me at 30 feet away, I can shoot him right between the eyes or right in the chest, and I carry this on me at all times, and then I've got an assault rifle, and I'm in the trunk. And a lot of times, if I'm having some heat, I carry a semi-auto 12-gauge shotgun. That way, if I got to defend myself, I don't kill people in their houses with the buckshot, but I get who I'm defending against. And so, yeah, look, we've had infiltrators break in the building before. We've had total deep state operation. We got documents recently that the Justice Department was funding all the fake lawsuits against me and all the garbage. We're going to be releasing that soon. The Trump administration on day 2 mailed it to us and said, check your mail. An FBI disk of Obama listing me as a national security threat in 2013. I've had ongoing cases open on me in grand juries. Since then, I did release that 5 weeks ago.
You bring up a good point, though.
Target. So the thing could have been, they could have, it is a possibility that they could have waited and followed him home and then killed him.
A suspect in the murder of our friend and colleague Jamie White has been captured. He is, in fact, a minor, the suspect, despite looking like a 45-year-old. There's a 17-year-old guy. This guy in high school, not even old enough to get a lotto ticket or go to prom, but, well, he looks like a 45-year-old killer, because that's what he is.
This dude will be going to jail prom.
Yeah, he'll be going to jail prom. Hopefully he'll bring his dates along, because so far they only have this one suspect. Apparently they are looking for 3 others. They use some pretty sophisticated, advanced technology to track this guy down. I'll go ahead and read from you from the KXAN article. Vehicle burglary gone bad led to deadly shooting of Infowars employee, says affidavit. A vehicle burglary gone bad is what led to the deadly shooting of an Infowars employee in March. The Austin Police Department arrested one of 4 suspects connected to the shooting last month, according to an arrest warrant affidavit. The man was identified as 17-year-old Eloy Adrian Camarillo, according to an affidavit. He was booked to the Travis County Jail on May 1st on a charge of capital murder by terror threat, other felony on a $250,000 bond. Murder by terror threat, other felony. Shortly before midnight on March 9th, APD, Austin Travis County EMS, and Austin Fire Department responded to an apartment complex on the 2300 block of Douglas Street. That's near East Old Torf Street and Interstate 35. When officers arrived on the scene, they found 36-year-old Jamie White with a gunshot wound to his neck. He was pronounced dead at 12:19 a.m. on March 10th, according to the affidavit. White was an Infowars employee. Law enforcement previously told KXAN. According to investigators, White was attempting to stop 4 suspects from burglarizing his vehicle at the complex, a green Kia Soul. One of the 4 suspects was identified as Camarillo, who police said was a co-conspirator in the deadly shooting, court records said, which I guess would mean that he is not, they don't think he's the one that pulled the trigger, but was there and was engaging in the crime spree, essentially. According to the affidavit, the suspects were approaching Kia brand vehicles before successfully breaking into the green Kia Soul. APD said in court records, it, quote, knows that car thieves frequently target Kia vehicles due to manufacturing defects and make them easy targets to auto theft. Overall, the suspects allegedly also stole a black and silver Kia Soul from March 9th to March 11th. Witnesses told police a black Kia Soul was seen pulling up to the green Kia before the deadly shooting happened. Surveillance footage at the complex captured the black Kia Soul leaving the complex northbound on Douglas Street towards Oltorf Street. It was later found abandoned in the area of 5100 Sarah Drive in East Austin, according to the affidavit. The black Kia Soul was reported as stolen by the owner on March 10th from an apartment complex in Kyle, Texas, just southwest of Austin. Police obtained surveillance footage from the owner of the black Kia Soul that showed a man wearing a black mask traveling in the silver Kia Soul at the apartment complex. That same man was attempting to break into two vehicles before successfully breaking into the black Kia Soul. A detective with APD found a silver Soul that was stolen on March 9th from the 5000 block of Dolores Avenue in East Austin. It was abandoned, blocking traffic in the 1200 block of South Interstate 35 in Southeast Travis, according to the affidavit. So essentially, they stole one car and then were driving around looking for another, tried to steal Jamie's when he intervened, and they killed him. They abandoned the first car that they stole, and apparently the investigation into that vehicle theft is part of what led to the discovery of this suspect. Investigators obtained search warrants for cell phone tower data near the area where the two stolen Kia Souls were seen, either on surveillance footage or in the area, or by witnesses who contacted police. One cell phone number was at all the locations and times where the suspects and suspect vehicles led them to Camarillo. Court records said Camarillo was arrested by APD investigators on April 30th. He told investigators he and the other suspects broke the window to White's green Kia Soul with the purpose of joyriding. He said White confronted one of the suspects inside the vehicle. That's when White was shot. And then Eloy and the other suspects fled the area in the black Kia Soul, according to the affidavit. No other details were available Tuesday. So again, we can't even tell you whether this guy was a citizen or an immigrant or an illegal immigrant. We don't know. We don't know where he resided. After all, the first car was stolen in Kyle, Texas, which is about 30 minutes southwest of Austin. But because he's a minor, there's very little information found for him. Yeah, $250,000 bond, which is surprisingly high considering the rampant crime in this city. And of course, this is more or less, what we expected. I know I saw people on X saying, "Oh, so he wasn't killed by a Ukrainian hitman?" Like, okay, when somebody's on a hit list and they get shot to death, you look into that. You consider that possibility. We never said that was a sure thing, but it was obviously coincidental and needed to be looked into. But it was always assumed that Jamie White's death was another tragic consequence of the deliberate lessening of law and order in this city. And he's one of dozens of people that have been killed because we got rid of half of our police force and dedicate infinite resources to nonsense that doesn't matter when our basic safety gets less and less every day. So hopefully this little scumbag gives up his 3 little friends and they can all fry together. Won't that be nice? Again, it's hard to even say this is good news. It's just an update. And of course, you can go to the Give, Send, Go, assisting Jamie White's family in deep loss. And I don't know, I can't see the URL there. What's the exact name of that? I'm sure if you just go to Give, Send, Go and search Jamie White, Justice for Jamie White. Search Justice for Jamie White to contribute to his family who, again, it's on Give, Send, Go, yeah. It's just impossible to imagine the loss that his family is experiencing and will have to endure through, this entire trial. Again, I get it. I get why we go through the process that we do. But it always just seems like an extra punishment for the victims that they're going to have to sit through days, maybe weeks of a trial for this little gremlin. And I always just think of I always just picture the lifelines whenever you hear about a murder, the two timelines of life of the two people involved. And how Jamie's had infinite potential. And this guy's is just, it was always, where was his lifeline going to go? Eloy, Adrian, Camarillo. Like one of them, you just have somebody who's loving and loved and brilliant and creative and then you have this guy's who just problems. He was always going to end up a ward of the state one way or another. One way or another, taxpayers were always going to be paying for this guy to simply exist. Anyway. We think about Jamie every single day. And again, hopefully this guy is not alone, and hopefully his friends join him on the electric chair at some point in the very near future. We'll keep you up to date on that. And apparently he was booked into Travis County on May 1st, so he's been in there for 2 weeks. And news just broke about this yesterday. Again, I mean, if it's easy to watch the local news and hear about a shooting in this area and another carjacking gone wrong in this area, and you just sort of brush it off and think, well, probably extenuating circumstances. It was probably some, situation I would never find myself in. So, tough for them, but I stay out of trouble. But it's like, if things keep going the way they're going, if the timeline continues the way that it is, it's just a matter of time before it's one of your friends or one of your family members, one of your neighbors, or you that are the inevitable subject of random, senseless violence. Folks, the clip you just watched is from the American Journal, streaming at Infowars on X each and every weekday morning, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And you can support us by going to thealexjonesstore.com.
A couple of months ago in Austin, Texas, there was an Infowars reporter by the name of Jamie White who had been pretty much gunned down, and his car had been taken out. At the time, given the fact that it was an Infowars reporter and that this particular reporter had been on a Ukrainian hit list of people that were to be killed by the Ukrainian authorities if they got the chance, there was a legit suggestion here that Jamie White's murder had been a hit. Now, there was a lot of speculation going on about this, mostly because this was just an Infowars reporter. Now, as it so turns out, it wasn't, it's kind of hard to say whether this was planned or not. What it turned out to be was a bunch of kids stealing cars, in particular Kias, which are apparently very easy to steal, taking them out, joyriding in them, and then just leaving them off on the side of the street. What happened in this particular case is that Jamie White attempted to stop this particular robbery from taking place, And one of the four of them had apparently this guy has a criminal record of sorts. This guy actually pulled out a gun and shot him twice. Now, having seen his mugshot photo when they arrested this guy, he looks like a guy who's trying too hard. I have encountered a number of people over the years that try too hard, right? And some of these guys try too hard to get and end up in prison because they decide that to put their balls in a wheelbarrow and pull out a gun and shoot somebody when it probably didn't require it. This was probably one of those situations. The guy could have just pulled out the gun. Maybe there might have been an exchange of gunfire. They could have just run off, and that would have been the end of it. I mean, maybe they would have gotten caught later, but no, this guy had to be the tough guy. This guy had to be the big bad boy. He pulled out the gun, shot the person, and now he's caught, and now he's if he gets out of jail now, he probably won't be getting out until he's well into adulthood. And again, having seen his mugshot photo and how he's posing for his mugshot photo doesn't help his case any at all. Now, you have to kind of go into the realm of speculation here because, I mean, the evidence on the surface doesn't look like it was a planned hit. And, I mean, I'm leaning in that general direction. Jamie White was driving a Kia. Kias have a particular vulnerability to being hacked into or being broken into and being driven away. The caliber of and again, this is I'm going to go into the crisis of men and boys situation here. You've got a lot of, and you're going to see more and more of this. You're seeing a lot of bored, frustrated, alienated young men going out onto the streets and not having a direction in their life and having been told, like literally from the time they were just barely out of diapers up until their late teens, that they were an inferior rapist, pedophile scumbag, potentially on paper, the whole time they were in school. Now, if you throw that in with some of the indoctrination and you throw that in with the fact that going back to when I was that age, you don't know that you don't know. Now, fortunately for me, when I ended up getting into a run-in with the law, it wasn't anything super serious. And I didn't kill anybody or anything like that. And I mean, I got away really lucky. The judge threw out the case. I was given an absolute discharge when I did actually go to trial. That, though, is not going to be the case with this guy, right? Any prosecutor worth his salt is going to bring up that mugshot photo, and the jury is going to see that mugshot photo, right? Like, this guy basically pissed away his potential over a Kia with no money in it, and for what? A couple of hours of a joyride. That's what he killed somebody for. Texas has a death penalty. This kid might, I don't know whether because he's only 17, he might not face the death penalty, but he's going to be spending a very, very, very long time in jail. And here's the thing. The system is producing more and more people like him all the time. The district attorney in Austin, Texas, is apparently a Soros appointee. There was some very poor communication between the police investigating this case and Jamie White's family. And of course, the fact that he was also an Infowars reporter probably also contributed to the foot dragging in regards to letting people know what was going on in this particular situation. Yes, glad that they got Jamie White's killer. There's an issue going on behind. There's step back. Okay, it was probably not a hit. Statistically speaking, if I was going to put money on it not being a hit, I would be putting money on it not being a hit. That being said, the other option here is even worse because, and a lot of people in the communities that I run in have a hard time, especially if you were just listening to number one, where, I was literally discussing the fact that in a lot of cases, a coincidence isn't a coincidence, right? A lot of people are having a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that this might have just been a random act. This may have just been a random criminal homicide because of what's been going on. And I mean, who can blame them for thinking that? I mean, I certainly can't blame them for thinking that. I was fully prepared to consider the fact that the murder of Jamie White, the way it went down, potentially considering a hit, is right up there, but it wasn't a hit. It was just a random criminal homicide and felony homicide. Now, the issue but this brings up another issue, and this is something I'm going to get into the manosphere here a bit on this issue, right? Because you heard me talk about this earlier. The individual who killed Jamie White, whose name I cannot remember for the likes of me right now, probably fairly safe to assume that Jamie White was not living in a rundown area of Austin. So, given the locality of his situation, I'm going to have to assume that this kid might not even be ghetto. I don't know his background, but this kid might not even be like from the hood, for lack of a better term. And because he's not from the hood, you have to consider the very real possibility here that this kid was trying too hard. And like I said, I've encountered a lot of kids like this, trying too hard. And the school system in particular and I have to start getting into politics here, the blue cities in particular, there's a indoctrination going on in those places. And, if this, more than likely, just like Carmelo Anthony, this kid probably comes from a home where there's either substance abuse going on or a lot of dysfunction, or there's a sort of stuff going on inside the family that we probably won't ever know or find out about. And I'm not saying that to excuse his actions, because his actions are inexcusable. What I'm saying here, though, is that if you pile on the Soros DA on top of a kid from a broken family and potentially a kid that may have already been a psychopath to begin with, right? You got to consider the fact that maybe this kid was potentially broken right from the start. And you take that kid and you run him through what is likely a heavily indoctrinated Austin, Texas school system. And he was already a bad apple to begin with. This is not all that surprising. Now, the only person who's really covered what's going on, that I've heard that has actually given some serious consideration to this is a guy by the name of What If Alt History. And he called it the incel revolution, but it's not the incel revolution. What's going on here is that you're seeing an increasingly large number of broken, directionless men and a deliberate attempt by the establishment to prevent the people who know how to fix the system, know how to fix these men, to allow these men to do what they need to do. Because if the people who are allowed to do what they needed to do with these teenage boys and give them direction and purpose in their life, these men that know how to do it are free-thinking, independent men. And that value system where you question the authority on what it is that they're doing, you don't just believe everything you're told, and you take a look at what's being told to you and you use a different filter, right? So a lot of these men who have the ones that could have made a difference are being muzzled and held back, and instead you're getting individuals that are basically going into these schools teaching these boys that they're responsible simply because they have a dick. Now again, I am not excusing this guy's actions. I am attempting to understand what is going on here, what happened with this guy. You're going to see a lot more of this, right? You're going to see teenage boys, got boys in their late teens and sometimes even into their early 20s. You're going to see a lot more of them acting out. And some of it is about sexual access, but a lot of it is just because they have this energy and they don't know where to channel it and they're fucking bored and they don't know that they don't know and they don't know how to even ask the questions, much less get the answer. So there's this energy and it's got nowhere to go and they're being treated like they're the scum of the earth just because they're boys, especially white boys, right? And that's going to, a lot of these boys are angry and frustrated and they don't know why. And very few men want to tell them why. Very few people want to tell them why, because if they started telling them why and they went and they took the red pill and started going down the red pill rabbit hole, it would probably mean the end of society as we knew it. So, yeah, you're going to see a lot more individuals like this who will just pull out a gun and randomly shoot a person over a Kia with no money in it so that they can go fucking joyriding for 3 or 4 hours. Like I'm sure maybe he was intoxicated at the time. Maybe he was high at the time. But I mean, yeah, he's going to be spending maybe all of his life in jail over a couple of hours of a joyride in a fucking Kia. Right? Like, he's not gonna get executed because he's not a legal adult. But I mean, like, another person died that day, right? When he got caught. And if you take a look at his mugshot photo, he you know, you can tell just from how he's acting that he's not gonna, he doesn't get it, and he's not going to get it till he goes to the big house, which, by the way, is exactly where he's gonna end up.
Hey, Alberta. Hey, you bunch of fucking separatist wackos. How you doing? Feeling good about yourselves? You're an embarrassment to this country. Everything you have, everything that you have enjoyed, cherished, and benefited from comes from being part of one of the greatest countries on the planet. You guys have your heads so far up your asses that you obviously can't see what pricks you are. The way you are treating Indigenous people, the way you are treating your fellow citizens, your fellow Canadians, you guys are a bunch of creepy little pricks. Alberta will never separate from Canada. It's never going to happen because people like me are going to stand up, throw their shoulders back, and keep fucking yelling. And keep standing up for what I know is right. And what you guys are doing is...
So, yeah, hey, Jan, there's very little chance that you'll actually see this because at this point, right, as I'm saying this, you're already blocking people, at least on your Twitter account, because on some level, even though, you know, you're a woman and women do not want to take accountability, on a certain level, you know that you just went because your ego got too fucking big and you were drunk and you made this video and you posted it up and you thought it was some sort of a big bad own, and then you fucking found out, like literally the next fucking day, that it wasn't an own and that you're the one who's getting owned. You know? But yeah, as a guy who lives in Alberta who is leaning that way towards separation, yeah, fuck you. You know, like, it's like, is it going to happen? Is Alberta separation going to happen? I have no idea. A vote must be taken, though. And I know which way I'm going to be voting. Why do I know which way I'm going to be voting? Because Mark Carney, the individual with whom you made a fucking song over praising, immediately brought in a new version of the Online Harms Act. And the only reason that I can logistically think of why you want to get this bill passed so desperately, so fast, is because you need to start muzzling the opposition. And you need to do it quickly because, I mean, you know, it's like the mainstream media, as we have just found out, are a bunch of motherfucking liars, and an increasingly large, unless they want to be ignorant or are absolute hardcore believers or have some type of a financial investment in what's going on emotionally, financially, politically, culturally, whatever, right? Unless they've got some type of an investment in what's going on, you know, like, outside of that group, nobody is going to support you, right? Like, it's like, I'm not going to go into the polls. I don't know what the most recent polls were, but it's slightly under 50%. And Carney is not going to be able to slide. I mean, Daniel Smith may even have to go so far as declare notwithstanding on the Online Harms Act in Alberta. Because, I mean, one of the most immediate benefits about this is that you get to go in under some, to quote Mariah, show me the person, I'll show you the crime. Yeah, you can definitely bring people, you can throw people in jail in Alberta on trumped up charges. it's not like you haven't been doing it before. I mean, just go look at Tamara Litch and the people who did that thing with the convoy. And, you figured out the hard way that you're not like, celebrities don't have the pull that they used to have. 25, 30 years ago, there wasn't an internet around, right? You didn't have celebrities like Mark Ruffalo and Sean Penn and whatever, and a few others knowingly saying stupid fucking shit and having it be broadcast out to the entire world for people to look at them and go, well, I mean, look at what happened with Rachel Zegler. Need I say more? I mean, and these people just like get exposed for being like literally dense, stupid motherfuckers, right? I mean, an actor like, say, John Wayne would have had even Ronald Reagan would have had an extremely difficult time thriving. Even a guy like Tom Selleck, who's a conservative too, would have had an extremely hard time thriving in the kind of environment, cultural and social and artistic environment that currently exists in most, be it music or TV or the movies or literally almost any artistic field right now. They'd have a extremely hard time, even porn. They'd have an extremely hard time thriving in that environment now. They would. And, just on a personal level, in case I haven't already said this, Jen, fuck you right back. Okay? We're not a bunch of fucking ignorant roots. Yeah, maybe we're not quote unquote sophisticated like they are in Toronto or Vancouver or whatever, right? I got to point out something to you. These quote unquote sophisticated, educated people are the ones currently trying to fucking shove the trans agenda down our throats. They're the ones trying to engage in cancel culture if you question LGBTQ. They were the ones that were trying to use BlackRock to gain corporate conformity in order to, I don't know, do whatever, right? And I mean, I kind of understand why they're doing it, but it doesn't make it right. Now, I got to be entirely fair because I have seen this from both sides, right? Like, I'm on the other side of the fence now, and I take a look at the cultural and educated elites and whatever, and I see them, and it's like I run into by the way, I actually have a degree. Again, it's a film school degree, but the film school I went to was probably one of the best in the world. So I actually have a pedigree. I do. The issue here is that, I mean, I've run into this the incredibly intelligent individual, the person with multiple degrees, bachelor, in one case, 2 master's degrees, who say these absolutely stupid things like they're like an opinion. Like, really, realistically, there's not much difference between them and the Bible thumpers that I was familiar with growing up, or the ignorant fucking redneck who paraded around their ignorance like it was a badge of honor. Like, there's no real difference between these people and what I'm currently seeing out of the left right now, right? The only difference between what I'm seeing on the left and what I'm seeing on the right is that the individuals on the right were doing it from a quote-unquote moralistic point of view because they had God on their side and the Bible and whatever. Like, what I'm seeing from the left is they're doing it from a moralistic point of view because they have the dogma of quote unquote science. And by the way, science, just like religion, can be bought and can be faked. In fact, I've posted, I actually literally got yelled and screamed at one time where I posted up examples of bought science, right? Because they've got science and rationality and education on their thing, but they don't say, I mean, like I've quite literally had to deal with one individual who made a claim that a group, and again, I'm going to say this again, just so that we're absolutely clear. I am not fully Team Trump, right? But this individual made the claim that the group was being dominated by Trump fans and that there was all this Trump content on there. And it was like, what? So I actually went back 100 posts and looked. I found 3. So I called this guy out. I said, no, there's only 3 mentions of Trump in this whole thing. Go, and it was like, oh no, you're wrong. And it was like his excuse. And this, I make no fucking, I'm not making this up. Like his claim as to why he's right is that I was an uneducated rube, and he had 2 master's degrees. And of course, right, if you get that many master's degrees, you know about sourcing your material, and that's what I called him out on. That only pissed him off even more, by the way. But again, right, that's from the left. Now, from the right, I saw the exact same thing. Jan Arden grew up around that uneducated, hick, Bible thumping, wear their confident and wear their ignorance around like a badge of fucking honor, knuckle fucking dragging redneck. Like, I grew up around those people. Like, there's no difference between them and the person that I just described, other than the fact that the first person went to university and the second one didn't. And coming from that background myself and having had to deal now with both sides, but back when I was a kid, growing up around idiots like this, right? And having the ability to get the fuck out of whatever, like, quote unquote, hillbilly fucking redneck or redneck fucking neighborhood that you belong to and go out and make something out of your life. I mean, you hold these, and a lot of them also had fucking violent tempers and fucking drug issues and alcohol issues to boot, right? And a lot of them were like abusive assholes, right? Like, you leave that community and you hold those ignorant motherfuckers in contempt. You hate them. You really fucking legitimately hate them, right? And you've gone on and you've made something of yourself, and you're seeing, and that's literally, that's what she calls them, a bunch of fucking rubes. She grew up around a bunch of fucking rubes, and now these rubes are getting all uppity, and in her mind, they're still, the people of Alberta are still a bunch, the people that she grew up around, I'm guessing, are still a bunch of fucking uneducated fucking redneck rubes who don't know what's best for them. She holds them in contempt, right? I mean, I have the ability to see things from both sides, right? And I understand where she's coming from, and she's also dead fucking wrong, right? And while they're not as quote unquote educated as people in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal are, you know, let's take a look at the actual caliber of the, and this is something that I've seen time and time and again. You get these educated idiots coming out here and they start telling people what to do, and they're completely oblivious to the actual reality of the situation, and they go and they make the situation worse, right? That stereotype, oh, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help, right? It's like, just don't. And as things have become more, and this was an almost invariable situation, things have become more centralized or whatever, you know, this was going, like, what's happening here in Alberta was almost inevitable. It was going to happen, especially once the globalists really started to make their moves, right? And yeah, she got drunk, she was pissed, and her ego is big, and she's not all that fucking smart, because trust me, I've met a lot of musicians. Intelligence, you know, they're intelligent when it comes to music, right? They're not intelligent. A lot of most musicians are not necessarily very intelligent when it comes to thinking matters through logically or critically. Those are two different fucking parts of the brain. Like, I really do wish people would like, maybe not ascribe the level of fucking genius to people like John Lennon and Bono, because they're not fucking, they musically, they're fucking fantastic, right? Their songs influence a lot of people, but they're not necessarily smart. They're not necessarily intelligent that way, right? In fact, as I've discovered over the years, John Lennon was actually a pretty deplorable human being, and Bono, whom, by the way, I have seen in person, I don't think Bono would take criticism very well, just based upon the 30 or 40 seconds where I saw him when he was performing in the city I live in. And I got really close to him, like close enough to actually touch him almost. And yeah, Jan Arden got drunk and she got pissed because the uppity fucking rubes from Alberta were pissed over something that they didn't deserve to be pissed over. And she felt that she had the right to say something, and she's discovering now, much to her surprise, that, you know, like, she shouldn't have said it. So, yeah, now let me just say this again. Jan, fuck you, okay? Like, you really, and this is something that I had to actually go and to get push past the stuff from my past, right? I had to realize that there were other people in that environment that weren't fucking alcoholic redneck assholes, right? Yeah, the alcoholic redneck fucking assholes are big, and they're loud, and they're brash, and they're abusive, and they take up a lot of attention, and they demand a lot of attention, and they're narcissistic assholes, but they're not the only types of people that live out here, right? And they don't get confronted most of the time because they keep the peace. But those idiots, Jan, that you grew up with, the ones that inspired you to go out and make something of yourself, the ones that you, like, are they even still alive? I mean, I can tell you I know for a fact, right, that all of the people, the ignorant, redneck, fucking alcoholic, violent fucking assholes that I grew up with as a kid, all died. They're all fucking dead. Right? Yeah, okay, they got replaced by other people, but they're all fucking dead, right? And their influence and their opinions don't mean shit anymore. Right? So who exactly were you trying to fucking yell and scream at? Because you're older than I am. So it certainly wasn't the assholes that you grew up with. Because they're all probably fucking dead. right? Get over yourself and move past what fucking happened, okay? You got your revenge. You had a successful music career, and you're going to die. I mean, not to say that you don't have issues, but you're going to die in a nice place. You have accomplished something in your life, right? You showed them. You don't have to show them anything anymore, because in all likelihood, the people who you think you're striking back against are all fucking dead. Or they're in jail. Just like what it is with me, right? I moved on. And I don't let individuals like that determine my reality anymore. And neither should you.
John F. Kennedy Jr., he was declared the frontrunner for the New York Senate seat back in 1999. Days later, his plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, and his rival, Hillary Clinton, was elected senator. Mary Mahoney was a Clinton White House intern. She knew enough of the inner workings of Bill's sexual advancements to be a star witness during the Clinton impeachment trials. She was brutally executed at a Starbucks she was managing in 1997. In 1993, White House counsel Vince Foster was found dead in Fort Marcy Park near D.C. He supposedly killed himself, and among a lengthy list of potential foul play, the bullet was never found. Then there's James McDougal, a key witness for White House prosecutors. He was serving his 3-year sentence for bank fraud at the Fort Worth Federal Medical Center in Texas. And just before he was to give a testimony before the grand jury, McDougal suffered a heart attack in solitary confinement. In 2015, Walter Scheib, a White House chef hired under Bill Clinton, joined the list. His body was found at the bottom of a river, nearly 2 miles from the base of the trail he was reportedly hiking. An autopsy determined that Scheib's death was accidental drowning, but he might have known too much. 27-year-old Democratic National Committee staffer Seth Rich was shot and killed in D.C. this year. There is speculation that he was the source of the controversial leaked emails allegedly sent by DNC staffers, and that he may have been murdered in retaliation. Then Sean Lucas, the lead attorney in a fraud case against the DNC, was found lying on the bathroom floor by his girlfriend when she returned home on August 2nd. His death was reported classified, pending the results of an autopsy. To this day,
Okay, folks. It appears as though current President Donald Trump is tired of sending out warnings. I'm going to be talking specifically about Letitia James and Hillary Clinton, although the commentary on Hillary Clinton might be longer than Letitia James. Immediately, I think it was either immediately before or immediately after the election, Donald Trump clearly fired a shot over the bow of Letitia James, stating in no uncertain terms that he was tired of fucking around with her. He was getting tired of her using him as a political grandstanding tool, and to continuing to pursue criminal investigations of him was going to result in retaliation by him on her. Now, I don't know that much about Trump, but I mean, I have seen this pattern before where Trump will give you an opportunity to back the hell off or change the approach of what you're doing before he actually does it. And a lot of the times when people do this, a lot of the times it is just a bluff. However, in the case of Donald Trump, this quite clearly was not a bluff. Now, Letitia James has likely engaged in some activity that skirts the law, maybe even outright breaks the law in her political career. Politics is a very dirty industry, and she also chose to play dirty with a guy who eventually became the president. Now, this stuff might have worked. Letitia James decided to jump on the lawfare train against Donald Trump back in the early 2020s. That lawfare train didn't work. Trump is now the president again. And instead of taking what Donald Trump said seriously, she decided to keep going anyway. And she kept making all of these statements and posturing and saying this and saying that and making all of these lawfare attempts to try to get Trump. And Trump finally just said, you know what, that's it. And now she's under investigation. And of course, she does what almost every person, like every woman that ever does anything bad, does whenever she got caught. She immediately tried to play the victim card. Well, here's the thing. Letitia James was actively engaged in lawfare against Trump for several years. Trump gave her a warning to back off, which was backed up by the executive position of President of the United States. And Letitia James just went ahead and did it anyway, probably knowing what Trump was going to be like after he got in office. So there's only two explanations to that, like maybe three. One, Letitia James is really stupid. The only problem is that you don't get, unless you were like on your knees, and she would have had to blow and sleep with a lot of guys to get to that position. She's not that attractive. Even in her younger days, she probably wasn't all that attractive. She probably wasn't stupid. Corrupt, yeah. Stupid, no. Two, she was perhaps misled by the people. And this is something, again, going back to topic number one, right? That people in her bubble led her to believe that Trump wasn't going to do anything to her. And because she believed that Trump wasn't going to do anything to her, she decided to go out and pursue this anyway. And, well, we all know what happened. She's making a bunch of big, bold, brave pronouncements about how she's going to fight this and how she's going to win and blah, 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 blah. That's not the point. Trump warned her. She chose to ignore those warnings. Or three, she's so delusional and so up her ass in her own delusion and arrogance that she literally thought that Trump was not going to eventually respond. And surprise, surprise, he did. Again, I can think of a few people. I mean, I've noticed that Jack Smith did the smart thing and fled the country, took a job overseas after Trump became president. But I mean, yeah, like there's more than a few people who were engaged in this rather despicable lawfare. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I am under I've said this a few times on this show, and I'm going to say it again. I'm not necessarily Team Trump. I'm under no illusion that Trump is some sort of anointed saint, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, you keep fucking with somebody, especially somebody with an ego like Trump's, for that long, just because you're concerned about what he might do, as opposed to, actually maybe like taking a parachute and jumping from the plane as it potentially could go down. That, yeah, there's gonna be a few people that are gonna be facing that are gonna get long armed. And again, Letitia James was specifically named out, and well, you reap what you sow. I mean, if you're so full of your own bullshit or so deluded into thinking when somebody tells you that this is what they're going to do if you continue to do it and you keep doing it anyway. Well, that's called play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Yeah, that's what that's called. Letitia James chose to play stupid games, and she now wins stupid prizes. In no way do I feel sorry for her. In no way am I sympathetic towards her, right? Because, like, no matter which way this breaks down for Letitia James, you know, like, she brought it upon herself. Yeah, she did. Hate to break it to you. Now, the Clinton body count. Now, this was this was something that was kind of like unsubstantiated because I'd heard some rather high numbers of people who had been associated with Clinton that had either died in accidents or had been suicided or had been killed in robbery attempts, but in no form or function did I think that it was that many. Like, how many people do you know have had 100+ people in their immediate circle or in their extended circle die in robberies, die of accidents, and die of suicides? Well over 100 in the case of the Clintons. And it's not just the fact that they were all dying this way, but it's almost indiscriminate. Like, there are three that I think of two or three that stand out for me. One was around the time of the Monica Lewinsky deal, and there was a congressman who said that he had a lead. He had a person ready to testify against Clinton who had the initial M, and the two of the three aides that worked around the Clintons that were a woman and had a first name starting with M got killed. The only one that didn't get killed was Monica Lewinsky, and that was because Monica Lewinsky was probably in hiding and under protection. Now, first of all, right, like, unless Bill Clinton was doing something with all three of them, like, Bill Clinton knew, and definitely, and probably Hillary Clinton too, knew that it was Monica Lewinsky, but they killed these other two anyway, right? For what? Just in case? Like collateral damage? Just because? Because they needed to make sure, like, why? One of them died really violent. Like, both of them died really violently. And that, the people that I've seen that have engaged in that, and I will get into that later, but it's like, yeah, like, unnecessary, because in all likelihood, Bill Clinton knew who the woman was that was going to testify against him, but they went ahead and did it anyway. The second one was the willingness to kill other people as collateral damage. Now, case in point here. Now, I can't remember this, but, like, first of all, there was the death of that one secretary who died in that plane crash over in Europe, and there were several other people on that plane. Also, the fact that perhaps, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but apparently this guy had a bullet in his brain before the plane crashed. So I don't know what the hell happened there. Then there was another situation where a plane was brought down with over 100 other people in it just to get one person. And then the other one, which I found was really, because, like, if the member of the staff, of the executive staff, is one thing, but to go out and kill an entire plane load of people just to get one person is mind-boggling. outright sociopaths do that. And then, of course, there was the other one. I can't remember the name, but he took a private charter plane from an airport. That plane developed problems. They landed, got into another plane. That plane took off, and it also crashed. And the person died. Now, the approximate odds of that happening are astronomically high in the first place. But to have it happen on two different planes, very close to each other, and both of them just happen. Like somebody would have had to have gone in and sabotaged both planes. And by the way, really honestly didn't particularly care if the plane killed their designated target and the other plane took off and killed somebody else, and they wouldn't have really cared one way or the other. Right? Just indiscriminate killing. Then, of course, there's the mysterious deaths and suicides of individuals who get a little bit too close to the Clintons in terms of their investigations. And there was a lot of those as well. Again, right, even the death of one person making an investigation of the Clintons would have been enough to set off alarm bells, but there's been multiples of them, including an individual that was talked about right at the beginning of the Clinton body count. Now, Trump quite happily and willingly posted this up at his Twitter and let everybody else know what was going on. I don't follow what the Clintons were doing, but obviously the Clintons had been either orchestrating something behind the scenes that Donald Trump had known about, or had said something about Trump, and Trump had decided that it had enough. I'm going to go with the former, and Trump decided he wasn't going to fool around anymore. Becoming very, very clear. Because, again, like on the next show, I'm going to be discussing what he did with the president of South Africa, which is going to be a very interesting discussion indeed. But yeah, Trump is not fucking around anymore. Like, he wasn't screwing around the first time around, but now he's had the luxury of having 4 years and having gone through 4 years of lawfare to boot to get reelected as president. Oh, and 2 assassination attempts. I don't think Trump was going to be very forgiving of those, because there's a lot of really weird, unexplained stuff around that as well. So, yeah, Trump's done fucking around. You're probably they used lawfare on him, so he's going to use lawfare on them. And they can scream about abuse of power and how it's unfair and how Trump is acting like a bully or how he's carrying a grudge. But honestly, you know what? If someone had done this to me for this long, I'd be carrying a grudge too. And stepping back even bigger picture, the reason why they're attempting to do anything around this is because they suspect or fear that Trump is going to take away their little goodie bag and the corruption that's currently existing in D.C., which is going to eventually take down the government take down the American government. There's going to have to be a major reform there of one form or another for the United States to survive long term, because there's been a lot of foot dragging in regards to Doge. And FAFO, fuck around, find out. This is exactly what Letitia James and the Clintons are finding out. More to come. I suspect there's going to be a little bit more lawfare being used by Trump in the future. Again, fuck around, find out. So, yeah, all of that evidence, all of the allegations, all of the things that have been brought up about P. Diddy, like, there is enough evidence there just based on what I've been listening to in the media that, literally all they have to do is just basically step out and present it in a logical and coherent order, and then make sure that P. Diddy's defense attorney can't blow up a smokescreen like they did, say, for instance, with O.J. Simpson, and P. Diddy would be going to jail for the rest of his life. Here's the thing. And not to mention the fact that he actually tried to flee, too, by the way. Here's the thing. As of when I actually posted this topic up, there hasn't been it looks like the prosecution almost seems to be like sabotaging the case on purpose. It was more, just bringing in, like, for instance, bringing in a very pregnant woman to testify and having the decision not to have Justin Bieber testify, and having witnesses come up that were not particularly reliable. And you're having a lot of third-party observers observing this trial and going like, are they actually going to make an actual point? And that's the thing. I mean, they're the prosecution, and they've got enough there to potentially send him away for life. And they don't really seem to be getting to the actual point. They seem to be talking around the peripheries. Now, is it possible that could change next week or this week? Who knows? Here's the thing. I'm not seeing in any of the news threads that I'm seeing anybody coming up with the actual smoking gun testimony against P. Diddy. And when you consider the levels of crime against him, and we were just talking about the Hillary Clinton death list. I mean, P. Diddy's got one too. It's not nearly as big, obviously, but there is one. His seemed to be targeted around critics who get too close to him. But I mean, it's like, it's like looking at him and looking at Suge Knight and trying to pick which one of those two was better, and realizing that Suge Knight was probably the better of the two. And Suge Knight's in jail for life. Now, again, P. Diddy is not a guy who I really had any particular... I mean, he's in the music industry, and the music industry is, generally speaking, not something that I really give a whole lot of a fucking deal about. I was never impressed with P. Diddy's music. The stuff that I did listen to, it looked like he had stolen off of somebody else. He seemed more concerned with the trappings of success and the copying of successful people that had come before him, as opposed to doing anything himself. And, again, right, that's just appearances. I don't have any emotional value placed in P. Diddy as a person or as a musician or whatever. I really could not care less. And by the way, the fact that I could not care less is probably going to reflect in the length of this particular section of the video that you're listening to. The one thing that does stand out for me, though, about this, and this is a speculation that I heard from somebody, is that, they went after P. Diddy not because he had done anything wrong, they went after P. Diddy because, well, certain powerful people want to get a hold of whatever blackmail material that P. Diddy had on other people and use it themselves, potentially for even more heinous reasons than what P. Diddy was using it for. And I'm looking back at this, and as I'm still looking back at myself, like even in my late 20s and early 30s and whatever, when I was wanting to be in with that crowd and thinking that was going to mean something, and being grateful and feeling grateful that I didn't aspire to get to that level. Because it seems like, and I mean, for instance, Ryan Reynolds is the guy that I generally had a lot of respect for, but then I look at his actions, and particularly the actions around his wife, Blake Lively, whom, by the way, had well, let's just put it to you this way. If I was still doing the Bad Thought series with Eamon, Blake Lively, we would be doing one on Blake Lively. And, it seems as though everybody in that industry is corrupt or corrupted to some degree or another. The fact that J-Lo has remained stock, mute, silent about this issue and has done everything in her power to try to distance herself from a rather public relationship that she had with P. Diddy in the 2000s says quite a bit about her in particular. And what this is just me. I'm going to get into the realm of speculation here because, I mean, I have no idea how else I'm going to fill in the content for P. Diddy otherwise. I think an alternate path to stardom, for lack of a better word, or fame needs to be found than going through the current establishment areas. Now, does that mean that there's going to be a paragon of virtue and morality with these alternate pathways? No, I have no illusions about that. You're probably going to end up having to deal with a lot of the same things there. What that does, though, and this is a part that's really pissing a lot of and even, for instance, what they tried to do with YouTube, where you have to have the correct opinions or your content is going to get throttled. Unfortunately, the throttling of the content is starting to not work because an alternate path was created for YouTube. You need to create an alternate path for filmmakers and actors and singers and performers and artists of all types away from the established norms, because too often, too frequently, what you're running into is that now you really can't get anywhere in an artistic field unless you have the correct political opinion or cultural or social opinion. That is a situation that existed. In fact, Adolf Hitler, who, by the way, here, YouTube's good people are going to get triggered when I say it, but I'm going to say it again. Adolf Hitler. The Nazis and Mein Kampf, which I have read cover to cover, not because I'm a fan of Hitler, because I wanted to figure out what his fucking hang up was with the Jews, has an entire section in Mein Kampf about the need to control art and control culture and to direct those forms to serve the needs of the state and to serve him. And this is basically what is happening with most of the artistic fields now, which is why you need to move away from it. You also need to move away from it because all too often now, and this ties both directly and indirectly to the first point that I made, is that, you know, you get individuals like Harvey Weinstein. You know, like you get power or king makers or queen makers that have the ability, that control the gates to success and fame. And those individuals that control the gates to success and fame, and this is the reason why the internet has been so fucking fantastic, right? Because they control the internet fame. They just ask the new media what's going on with them, about how they've lost a lot of their legitimacy to the alt media. You know, that's the reason why. And it's the same thing is eventually going to happen with music, and the same thing is going to eventually happen with Hollywood and the entertainment complex, right? You know, like you have individuals in Hollywood, for instance, or in this case in music, that are the gatekeepers. And as the gatekeepers, they are as powerful, if not more powerful, than the actual artists themselves. This has been a situation that has existed in the music industry. I mean, for instance, I can't remember, they used to call him the Colonel. He was the guy who was Elvis Presley's manager. Really not a particularly good human being. And you also have Tommy Mottola, right? There's been individuals like that in music. And there's also been individuals like that in Hollywood as well. Not just Weinstein. There's been a few others. And you've also got individuals, I don't know the name, but there have been individuals like that at Broadway, right? Too much of the cultural field, certain positions in the cultural field, are controlled by psychopaths for the power, for the fame, for the money. And a lot of in some cases, they're not willing to share with anybody else, and they're willing to use violence to get to where they need to go, including killing of artists and so forth, right? Now, don't think P. Diddy was quite that ruthless. Shoegay was apparently that ruthless. But I mean, you know, alt paths need to be created. Right? The reason why is because you get individuals like P. Diddy and Suge Knight and Harvey Weinstein, right? So that you can't get around. Or you just basically, whoever it is that's controlling the algorithms over at YouTube, they tried to do the same thing with YouTube. It doesn't work anymore. That's why. So, having gone off on that tangent and having seen what's going on here, you may have to prepare yourself for the very real possibility that P. Diddy might be found innocent and walk out a free man, minus all his blackmail material and his reputation completely and totally destroyed, but he'll still be in the game. Get woke, go broke. Now, we have seen what's happened with the MCU. We definitely saw what happened with Rachel Zegler in Snow White. And we've also seen what happened eventually with Captain Marvel. And I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. Every once in a while, a woke movie actually is able to come in and knock it out of the park. For instance, the Barbie movie. And there is going to be a Barbie 2, and I got a bad feeling it's not going to do particularly well, because once again, you know, the circumstances of that particular Barbie movie, some of it happened by accident. It ended up being inadvertently based. And because it ended up being inadvertently based, it actually attracted a totally different audience than what people were expecting it to. But you know what? Because it ended up being based, there's going to be another one. But I mean, for the most part, with very rare exceptions, right? Most of, like, for instance, even some movies where they were woke and they had an unexpectedly good release, like for instance, Shang-Chi came out unexpectedly strong, and it ended up being just barely break even, by the way. But I mean, because it came out so strong, they started declaring it a victory until they actually started looking at the long term. And as soon as it realized that it was just going to barely break even, right? People went quiet. They went quiet. Same thing with Ocean's 8. Ocean's 8 was not a bad movie. There was a lot of feminist posturing in it, but it wasn't a bad movie. Barely broke even. Again, right? People started looking a little bit. So there have been things in the past that have done well. Ironheart is not one of those movies, is not one of those TV series. Everything about the series, based upon what the reviews have been like, strongly suggests that what they did is they just simply replaced Tony Stark with a strong, independent black woman and basically took everything that Tony Stark did and had her one-up him. And, they made this series a couple years ago, and it was obviously so bad that MCU and Disney tried to not release it, and the only reason they did release it is because they had no other choice. They were contractually obligated to release it, and so they're releasing it. It's probably not going to do very well. The reviews are not particularly good. Again, this is what happens when you let the woke crowd write stories. They can't come up with anything original. Like, even, for instance, Barbie. There's not a whole lot original about Barbie. Like, there's scenes out of that movie that are stolen directly from either The Matrix or The Fight Club, or Matrix, Fight Club, or Saving Private Ryan. There's like literally multiple scenes in that Barbie movie that are stolen from those three movies. And, it's kind of hard for me to give a proper opinion about Ironheart because not only have I not seen it, but I really have no desire to see it. The reviews, though, have not been flattering. Like, the writing obviously was done by a bunch of wokesters, and I mean, it was obviously from where I'm standing, it looks like it was obviously so bad that even the woke executives over at the MCU knew they couldn't release it, and except, of course, that they had to. So now they're releasing it and hoping that it's just going to get released and it's going to go away. And, I could go off once again, I could go off about, because I was just talking about this with P Diddy on the topic before. There needs to be an alternative route to making fame and fortune in the film industry and in television besides going through Hollywood or going through Toronto if you live in Canada or whatever. Like, there has to be an alt route around that where you're not dependent upon cultural Marxist kingmakers or queen makers deciding that you have the correct political and cultural opinions or have the right look. Therefore, we're going to allow you to do the show and not the other way, and not this person over here who might be more talented, but is maybe just a little bit too strong-willed and independent for our tastes, right? And even those people did not want to see this thing get released, which tells you how bad it is. I don't, again, haven't seen the series yet. I don't know what the series is, but I mean, it's giving the vibes it's giving me is not as bad as it was with Snow White. And by the way, it would have to be pretty bad to give me vibes worse than Snow White. But it's not looking very good. It looks like they just gender and race swapped Tony Stark and basically tried to one-up Tony Stark with Ironheart. And it's going to be it wouldn't surprise me if there was a bunch of social justice grandstanding in this as well, which would be the absolute, death of this particular TV series if it happens. And what can I say? But I'm going to say it again. Get woke, go broke. Are you really all that surprised? Yet another TV series, in particular, and I could go on for a while about the number of bad concepts that Disney has come out with in the last couple of years and just keeps doing it despite clear and obvious financial numbers that clearly show it doesn't work. But they keep doing it anyway. And Ironheart's going to be another one of them, in all likelihood. I was in no way surprised when I heard this. It's not that I was expecting Joe Biden to have a cancer. I was expecting another medical diagnosis, that he had dementia or some type of disease that was destroying his ability to function mentally. Because, there was a clear mental decline from 2020 to 2024. It was absolutely indisputable. And here's the thing about this. The stage 4 cancer, you don't just spontaneously develop stage 4 cancer. It has to go through multiple stages, which, by the way, people around Joe Biden knew about, but let him continue on as president anyway, and we're ready to allow him to run for another term, and ran block inside the Democrat Party to allow him to run. Would Joe Biden have even survived to 2028? Now, would he have made it? Would he have survived? No. I think I have to openly speculate here in some form or fashion that the reason why they didn't admit that it's a catch-22 for them. The reason why they didn't admit that Joe Biden had stage 4 cancer is because Kamala Harris will be taking over. And Kamala Harris is even less likable than Joe Biden was and would have absolutely screwed things up. So they really, again, the people who were actually running the show, because it was definitely not Joe Biden the last 4 years, have really gone out and done this to themselves. Not just the mental decline, but the physical decline. And the fact of the matter is that, you just don't develop stage 4 cancer. People immediately around Joe Biden had to know, the constant convalescing in Delaware, that had to, the number of times he had to go to Delaware to convalesce over his 4 years. There's just story after story. And most of it was about his mental condition, which quite clearly, especially by 2024, it was very, very clear that he was unfit to be the head of state. Now, it's not as though they have had unfit heads of state before. In fact, there have been a lot of them over the years, including some of them that have managed to go all the way to President of the United States. The issue here was that they knew about Joe Biden's mental decline. They knew about his decline in health. And yet they wanted him to run again because the option, the person they selected, was completely unsuitable to be in that position. I got to point out something here. Like, Kamala Harris almost failed up into the most powerful person in the world. Like, that is some type that would, I mean, if Kamala Harris had somehow won in 2020, like, they would be talking about this particular event, assuming the planet even still existed 500 years from now. They would be looking back at what happened with Kamala Harris, and they'd be like scratching their heads, right? And they'd be like going, like, they'd be using this as a historical example of how things, how governments and how superpowers can just run awry. Not that, Trump is making some serious attempts here. I don't think he's going to be able to do it in the next 4 years, but yeah. Just stop and ponder this as a concept. They had so little confidence in Kamala Harris that they were willing to let an old man with potentially with some type of mental dysfunction and cancer run the country instead of Kamala Harris. And they were unwilling or unable to get rid of Kamala Harris for whatever reason. Just stop and let that sink in, right? Like, Joe Biden was surrounded by handlers and psychopaths and family members that were more concerned about their own positions than the health, both mental and physical. Keep in mind, Biden is by no means a saint. Got to point that out. Even before he became president. Of an old man who was quite clearly past his time and should have been put out to pasture, because the Democrats literally have nobody left. The only person, well, okay, they might be able to drag out AOC for 2028, but that would be a nightmare ticket. Gavin Newsom and AOC as the Democrat ticket. Just ponder the frightening possibilities there. Yeah. This is more of a testament of how bad things have actually gotten inside the United States, at least in particular with the Democrats. Like, a sick Joe Biden, both physically and mentally, was more acceptable as a president than Kamala Harris. Let that sink in. Just let that percolate in your brain. People were willing to lie, maybe even potentially kill, to keep that illusion up. Like, you saw individuals in the mainstream media, like, literally go to bat and try to claim that Biden wasn't mentally malfunctioning, even though when he went to places like G7 and whatever, you had other political leaders looking at Joe Biden and going, like, how is this guy still running the country? At one point when he went to a G7 summit and was in front of Justin Trudeau, of all people, and said, oh, he's not going to make it past 2024. That was Justin Trudeau who said that, by the way, who's also gone. We can be thankful for that. But yeah, how corrupt does the system have to be? Like, how badly do people want their privileged positions and to stay in those privileged positions that they're willing to prop up a guy like Joe Biden, who was both physically and mentally unable? He would not have survived to 2028. In fact, he's probably not going to make it to 2028, even now that he's not the president anymore. And they kept him in there because they were too selfish or they were too short-sighted to realize, oops, we picked Kamala Harris. She's even worse than Joe Biden. There were alternatives that they could have selected inside the Democrat Party that would have been a better option than Kamala Harris, but they chose to go with Kamala Harris. And because they went with Kamala Harris, they lost the election. Well, it's not that they would. The only person in the Democrat Party who may have stood a chance against Trump was probably Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders has blown through a lot of his credibility as well. So, I'm sorry that Joe Biden has stage 4 cancer. And Joe Biden was a corrupt, despicable political thug, and he was that way from the start. And you can tell that he was probably that way from the start from his broken children. And, pointing out the obvious here is, just like, he would have died in office is what would have happened. And they would have been quite happy to have him die in office. That's the really frightening part. And I want to feel sympathetic for Joe for being used that way. And to a certain degree I am, but at the same time, Joe Biden did this to untold numbers of people. He wasn't an actual murderer like the Clintons, but he was a thug and a goon, and he would do whatever it took to get in power and stay in power, and that's exactly what he did. And, I'm sorry that he got used, but at the same time, it is poetic justice that he got used the way he did, and he didn't have the mental capability anymore to do anything about it. Tragic, but unsympathetic. At least on one level. It is sympathetic on another. Yeah, we all should maybe be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief that Biden is not the president, that Biden did not stay in office, because it would have been, again, there are other political leaders out there who would have sensed this weakness and absolutely would have taken advantage of it. And yeah, just letting y'all know that the Democrats don't have any moral high ground to stand on.